Which LA Kings players have and have not met expectations so far this season? That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. You can enjoy the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope you had a great Christmas. On today's show, we're going to take a look at every player that's played for the LA Kings this season and let you know if they have met, exceeded, or fallen short of expectations so far this season. Obviously, this is my personal views. I'm going to be biased on what my expectations were for these players going into the season, and that could certainly be different than yours. So let's get started with Kings players that have met expectations so far this season, in my opinion, and we'll go in alphabetical order by last name. That means that up first is defenseman Kyle Burroughs. In his first season with the Kings, he's played 17 games with 2 assists. You could fade Burroughs slightly towards exceeding expectations because, frankly, he's played more than I thought he would with the LA Kings this year. Now, because of that 11-7 setup that the Kings have used, 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, that has given him an opportunity to play more as the 7th defenseman. But all in all, he's done his job. He's been defensively responsible while adding very little offensively. That was not to be expected. He's a third-pairing defenseman or an extra defenseman at best. And hard to say he's exceeded expectations unless you didn't think he'd be on the NHL roster at all. Then I could see why you would say that. For me, I would say that Kyle Burroughs has met expectations. Brandt Clarke, in his first full NHL season, the young offensive defenseman has played in all 34 games this season, mostly on the second pairing and getting power play time as well. I think we all expect a lot from Brandt Clarke as his career goes along, but not necessarily this season, his first full season in the NHL. He's been defensively responsible for the most part. Sure, there's been a few mistakes, and that comes with inexperience, but those are understandable. But all in all, I thought he's done a very solid job. Now, you might be a little disappointed with just 3 goals, but I'm not. And I will say, though, I am a little bit surprised that he's more of a playmaker at this point. He looks to shoot for assists rather than for goals. But 19 points in 34 games, he's leading all Kings defensemen in points. So obviously hard to be upset with that in any way. But Brandt Clarke, I think, having a solid season. To me, I don't think he's exceeded expectations, and they were high for me. I think, though, he has met expectations so far in his first NHL season. Phillip Danault, veteran forward, has 3 goals and 14 assists for 17 points. He's played 33 of 34 games so far on the season, on pace for 41 points, which actually is right around his career average. Danault had 51 points, 54 points, and then last season, 47 points in his 3 years playing for the LA Kings. He did start a bit slow this season, but he's been better of late. But he continues to be, I think, what the Kings wanted him to be when they acquired him. He's a good two-way center. He's smart. He's reliable. He anticipates plays. He's in the right place at the right time more often than not. So I think Phillip Danault has met expectations so far this season. Joel Edmondson, first year with the Kings, veteran defenseman, has played in 32 games so far this season, 4 goals and 10 points. His contract aside, he's been a solid defensive defenseman. Maybe he contributed even a little more offensively than I had thought. Not as physical as I thought he would be, but he does a solid job of policing the crease and delivering hits when necessary. Maybe he has stepped up his game a little bit in playing on that second pairing with the absence of Drew Doughty. But all in all, I think Joel Edmondson has met expectations. Warren Foegele, I thought long and hard about Warren Foegele exceeding expectations. But in the end, I've decided to put him here and say he's met expectations. He has been very good. A solid all-around player. He brings energy. He's smart. 9 goals, 18 points, playing in all 34 games so far this season. On pace for 24 goals and 43 points. That would just eclipse his career highs from a year ago when he had 20 goals and 41 points. So you got to be happy with the production so far. No doubt Foegele has fit in very nicely in his first year in LA. It's not likely that he's going to be a guy that's going to score a big game-winning goal, but he's one of those guys that will make the hit that causes a turnover that leads to a game-winning goal, or takes a hit to make an extra pass that leads to a game-winning goal. That's the kind of player Warren Foegele is. He may not be getting the primary assist or the goal, but he's going to have a hand in scoring and in the offense doing well. So I thought he was going to be the best addition as far as outside the organization for the Kings that they brought in. So far, I think he has been an argument to be made with Darcy Kemper, perhaps. But I think Warren Foegele, I could understand if you thought maybe he was exceeding expectations a little bit. But to me, I think he's meeting expectations, and that's him playing a very, very solid end-to-end game. Tanner Jeannot, another newcomer, I think is meeting expectations. First season with the Kings. I think he's been giving LA exactly what they were looking for when they brought him in. Physical presence. He's going to be strong on the forecheck, good enough defensively, and occasionally he'll chip in with a point or two and a goal or two. He's played 31 of 34 games so far with the Kings, 3 goals, 7 points. I think Tanner Jeannot is meeting expectations. Caleb Jones, veteran defenseman, first season with the Kings. He's played sparingly, 5 games, no points. I honestly think that he could give the Kings pretty much exactly what Kyle Burroughs brings to the table, but Burroughs is a right shot defenseman. Jones is a left shot defenseman, so that likely gives Burroughs the advantage, and that's why he's stayed on the NHL roster while Jones has been sent down to the AHL. Still, Caleb Jones, he could be called up, I think, very easily to fill that role of the extra defenseman if necessary. He gives the Kings some nice depth on the blue line. Adrian Kempe. I have high expectations for Adrian Kempe, and he's met those expectations so far this season. I can't really say he's exceeded them, although he's had a great year. He's played in all 34 games, team high 16 goals, 32 points, second on the team. He's on pace for 39 goals and 77 points. Very solid numbers. And if he actually gets 77 points this year, that would be a new career high. He had 75 last season. So I'm still, though, again, this whole thing is about what expectations are. And I thought Adrian Kempe would be one of the best players on the Kings, would put up the numbers to be top 3 in goals and points, and he's doing exactly that. So I'm not trying to diminish what he's done this year. Also great defensively. Maybe the Kings' best all-around player other than Ajay Kopitar, and maybe there's an argument to be made that he's even better than Kopi because of the offense. But Adrian Kempe, to me, having a great year and meeting expectations. Andre Lee getting his first taste of the NHL, and he's looked like a legit bottom 6 NHL player. I thought he'd be given the chance to be on the NHL roster because of the way he played in the preseason, and I'm excited to see him get that chance. For what it's worth, to me, I don't think he's exceeded expectations. 17 games, 2 assists. So I thought if he got a chance to play, he'd do that. He'd bring his size, 6'5", 200 pounds. He'd be a physical presence. He'd be good on the forecheck, and he'd show a little bit of skill here and there. I think maybe we're getting a little bit of a taste of what's to come with Andre Lee, but so far I would say he's met my expectations. I could see, though, how some people, if they didn't think he was going to be on the roster, would say he's exceeded expectations. Trevor Lewis, veteran forward. He's been out for a while with an injury, but when he's played for the Kings, he's given them exactly what you would expect. Smart, responsible, rarely makes a mistake, just a veteran presence, leadership on and off the ice, playing in that bottom 6 role. 25 games, he's got 3 goals and 7 points. David Riddick, veteran netminder, solid in his number 2 role behind Darcy Kemper, taking over twice this year when Kemper has been out due to injury. You could make an argument that David Riddick has exceeded expectations because of him having to take over that number 1 role for a little while. But to me, I think he's been pretty much exactly what I thought he would be. Reliable backup goalie, smart positionally, doesn't give up a lot of rebounds, and occasionally will make a big save for you when necessary. which is why they call him Big Save Dave. Riddick appearing in 19 games this year, which is the most of any Kings goaltender, a 10-8 record, 2.46 goals against average, and an 891 save percentage. His numbers are actually slightly down from last season, but not dramatically so. I think David Riddick is playing his role well and meeting expectations. And finally, Akil Thomas. I have been a bit disappointed with his lack of playing time, but I don't think it's been a reflection of how he's played. It just seems like Jim Hiller has preferred the more size on the fourth line with Samuel Helenius and Andre Lee. But Thomas, when he's gotten his chance, I think he's been exactly what you would expect. Solid. He's got a little bit of physicality to his game, got a little bit of skill to his game. He can pass, he can shoot. Just a solid bottom six forward. Would like to see him play a little bit more, but that's not my decision. 15 games for Akil Thomas this year. He's got 1 goal and 3 points. All right, up next, we're going to get into players that have exceeded my expectations so far this season. That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Those of us that live in Southern California are so lucky. We live in a place where we can experience so many amazing live events, sports, of course, but it's not only about sports. There are theater events, concerts, and comedy shows you can check out. And when you check out those live events, no matter where you are, you need to use what I use to get all my tickets, and that is Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for live events even easier. It filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The all-in pricing feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, and you can check out the Vantage Point from a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You'll get the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, let's look at the Kings players so far this season that I believe have exceeded expectations. And again, we will go in alphabetical order. And I'm going to start with Mikey Anderson. And some people might say he's met expectations, but I think he's exceeded them. 5th season. He's only 25 years old, but a young veteran. If he doesn't play 1,000 NHL games and 15 seasons in the league, I'll be shocked because he's that type of a guy. This season, 34 games, so he's played in every game so far this year. Very reliable. 4 goals, 10 points. That's not bad from Mikey. But I think the reason why, to me, he's exceeding expectations is without Drew Doughty, I feel like he's taken his already solid defensive game up just another notch. So that's why I've got Mikey Anderson, to me, just a little bit exceeding expectations. And his partner, Vladislav Gavrikov, absolutely doing the same thing. He's also played in all 34 games, 2 goals, 16 points, maybe the MVP of the Kings this season because of what he's done in the absence of Drew Doughty, taking it up another level, playing on his offside, left shot defenseman, playing on the right side, hasn't affected his game one bit. He's been great defensively, along with Mikey Anderson, also killing penalties. That duo has led this stout Kings defense, eating up minutes and making life for Kings goaltenders as manageable as possible. Vladislav Gavrikov exceeding expectations for me at this point. And if it continues, he will cash in at the end of the year. He's a UFA, and either the Kings or somebody else is going to write him a pretty good check. Samuel Helenius is a bit of a surprise for me because I did not see him on the Kings roster this year. 18 games, no goals, 2 assists. I think he did look good in the preseason. And it kind of was like, oh, this guy could be a player for the Kings down the road, but didn't think he was going to play this year. Now, the injury to Trevor Lewis opened up an opportunity for him, and he's taken advantage of it. Nothing spectacular, but the 6'6", 200-pound center has played well as the fourth-line center. He's done an okay job in the faceoff circle. He does have some skill, got a long reach, but the size is what really stands out. Not afraid to hit someone as well. Not afraid to drop the gloves if he has to. Again, I did not have him playing in the NHL this season at all. So the fact that he is and that he's holding his own, to me, means that Samuel Helenius has exceeded expectations. I'm not sure if this is going to be controversial or not, but I got Andrei Kopitar here. And it wasn't because I thought, oh, the old guy is going to finally show some signs of his age. just that what he's doing to me has been so amazing. They're all 34 games he's played in, 10 goals, 37 points, leading the Kings in points. And a lot is expected of the captain. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he's the greatest King of all time. But in his 19th season, at 37 years of age, to be on pace to be close to a career high in points, that's amazing. And I don't see how you can't say that isn't exceeding expectations, because you would think at some point he might take a little bit of a step back, but it isn't this year. On pace for 89 points. His career high is 92, set back in 2017-18, as he just continues to be a great all-around player. And again, leading the team in scoring so far, leadership on and off the ice, Kings legend. But I think, again, even though my expectations of Andre Kopitar are pretty high, I actually think he's exceeding them just a little bit so far this season. And Darcy Kemper, I really thought the veteran netminder would be good in his first year in LA, returning to LA, bouncing back from a season in Washington where he lost his starting job and got traded away. I thought he'd be good, but he's been even a bit better than I expected. Now, the 8-2-5 record, not going to blow you away, but he's top 10 in goals against average in the NHL, 2.40. He's just outside the top 10 in save percentage at 911. But to me, it's the quality of saves that he has made fairly regularly. He has made some big time saves that have led to Kings victories. And we've talked about the Kings goalies that they've had since Jonathan Quick has departed, looking for that next great goalie, kind of getting by for now after the failed Cal Peterson experiment, getting by with veteran guys and just expecting them to make the saves they need to make. But I really think Darcy Kemper a lot of times this year has made those grade A saves, and I've been impressed with him. And to me, he's exceeded my expectations, not by a lot, but by a little bit. Alex Laferriere has exceeded expectations for me this year. 34 games played, 13 goals, 25 points. I said going into the season, I thought he would definitely exceed his rookie totals of last year, but I did not think he would do it before New Year's Day. Just surprised at how strong he's been from the very start of the year, playing up and down the lineup, chipping in on special teams as well. He's not great at anything, but pretty good at everything. Nice scoring touch, pretty good skater, makes good decisions, pretty good defensively. And I think maybe the thing that has exceeded expectations for me, other than just the production, he has really turned into a solid forechecker and a guy that'll go to the net. And I had said from the very beginning, I think if he does that, he could be a really good player for the Kings, maybe even a top 6 player. And so far, I think he's definitely shown that. Jacob Moverar is an interesting player that I'm putting on my exceeded expectations list. He's played 16 games, no goals, 1 assist. But I do want to say up front, I don't get the praise for Jacob Moverar. And I've seen people kind of go out of their way to talk about how great he's been. And I'm like, okay, he's been good. And I'm even putting him on my list as exceeding expectations because I didn't think he'd play that much. But I don't know that he's been great. He is what he is, solid third pairing defenseman. But I do think he's someone that's pretty replaceable. He's made good decisions. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, which is certainly what you want from your third pairing defenseman. More on that coming up. But I don't think he should be overly praised for what he's done. I think he's done a good job. I think he's kind of a marginal NHL player. Maybe that's a controversial opinion. I don't think so. But he's done good. He's done a good job, and he's played more than I thought he would. Now, when Drew Doughty comes back, and if Vladislav Gavrikov goes to the left side and it bumps down Joel Edmondson, then maybe he's the 7th defenseman and Kyle Burroughs is out, or maybe he's out as well. I don't know. But again, for what he's done, I will give him praise. But I don't think he's, I think some people have kind of gone out of their way to say, man, he's been so good. He's been good, but I don't think he's all that. Eric Portillo. All right. He's only played 1 game, but he won that 1 game. And I thought if he got into the lineup this year at all, it would be because there were a lot of injuries in net for the Kings. But instead of calling up Phoenix Copley, which I thought the Kings would do when Darcy Kemper was out, they call up Eric Portillo. He has 1 game. allows 1 goal, 29 saves against the Ducks, and they win the game, and he played well. So I didn't think he'd play at all this year, so I'd have to say it's just one game, but Eric Portillo has exceeded expectations with that one start. And I think if the Kings had to go back to him, they'd be okay with that. And finally, Alex Turcotte. 29 games, 4 goals, 13 points. Obviously, those numbers aren't going to blow anybody away, but hopefully he continues to get a chance to play on the top line because he looks like he belongs there. He looks like a top 6 forward. He can, I think, produce there. Fast, brings a lot of energy, good passer, and a nice finishing touch. And considering that I was just hoping he'd play a full NHL season this year and be a fourth line contributor, he's already more than that. Alex Turcotte has exceeded my expectations. I'm excited about him going forward as I am any player on the Kings roster. And he's a guy it's easy to root for because of his injury issues. All right, we're going to close out our look at the Kings roster with players who have not met expectations so far this season. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Tackle the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. NFL playoffs are right around the corner. You got the playoff push coming up, teams battling for seedings, and you've got the college football playoffs going on as well. It's a fun time to be a football fan. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we close it out with the players on the list that have not met expectations. In my opinion, we continue in alphabetical order. But at the list is Quinton Byfield. 34 games, 6 goals, 15 points. I am not hitting the panic button on Q. I think when it's all said and done, he's going to have a very solid NHL career. Now, will he turn into a superstar? I don't know. I don't know about that. But I think he could have a solid NHL career, kind of in the mold of a Jeff Carter. And look, no doubt his numbers have not been there this season. And that's just a fact. After the career high 20 goals and 55 points last year, we all expected him to take another step forward. That hasn't happened and isn't likely to happen. But he is still contributing, learning to play center at the NHL level. And it may take him a little longer than a lot of us would like to see. But in the end, I'm still confident Quinton Byfield is going to be a very good player for the LA Kings. And if you keep track of current events around the NHL, there was another number 2 overall pick, which of course Quinton Byfield was, who recently got traded. Capo Caco was the number 2 overall pick in 2019, the year before Quinton Byfield, of the New York Rangers, and they just shipped him out of town to the Seattle Kraken. So it doesn't always work out. Another number 2 overall pick not that long ago, 2017, Nolan Patrick by the Philadelphia Flyers. He's not in the league anymore. So I'm just saying it's not automatic that the number 2 pick is going to be this superstar. Now, there have been some number 2 picks that have turned out to be very, very good. I think Quinton Byfield will be there one day. But right now, I think you have to say he has not met expectations for him so far this season. Andreas Englund is on this list. 8 games, 1 assist. I just thought he'd play probably more than Jacob Moverara. But Moverara's gotten his ice time, and Englund is almost an afterthought at this point. So, you know, it's not his fault he hasn't played, but I would have thought he would have played more than Jacob Moverara. I would have thought he would have played more than Kyle Burrows, but Andreas Englund, I have to say, what category am I going to put him in? He hasn't met expectations. He hasn't exceeded them, so you'd have to say he has not met expectations through no fault of his own. Kevin Fiala, 33 games, 13 goals, 21 assists, or 21 points. Not bad numbers. And while he has played a lot better of late, for me, he still hasn't met expectations. And I will admit, I have very high expectations for Kevin Fiala. Started slow, and we've joked about the good Kevin, bad Kevin thing. But we did have a lot of bad Kevin earlier in the year. He was taking stupid penalties. He was having bad turnovers, and he wasn't really contributing much offensively. Fortunately, he has turned it around, it looks like. I'm pretty optimistic that the good Kevin we've seen in the last week and a half to 2 weeks is what we're going to see going forward. That's the Kevin Fiala we're used to seeing. But again, I have high expectations of him. I think he's got an elite shot. I think he's got elite hands, and I think he's a very good skater. Sometimes he tries to do too much, and sometimes he forces things when they aren't there. But overall, he's a very good player, and the Kings are obviously a better team when he's performing at a high level. Hopefully, going forward, we're going to see a lot more good Kevin. But I have to say, for me, so far this season, Kevin Fiala has not met expectations for me. Trevor Moore, 28 games, 6 goals, 18 assists, coming off his career year, 31 goals and 57 points. But Trevor just has not been producing. I'm not exactly sure why. But I think he's been a bit overshadowed because I think so many people have been focused on Quentin Byfield not performing that they've almost kind of forgotten that Trevor Moore hasn't done much this year. But to me, I actually think Trevor Moore might be the biggest disappointment for me because I'm not shocked that Quentin Byfield, a younger player, is having some issues moving to a new position. I really thought Trevor Moore would be another 25, 30 goal scorer this year, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So Trevor Moore, unfortunately, has not met expectations. And one more final player, Jordan Spence, has not met my expectations. 33 games, 2 goals, 10 points. For me, Jordan is a close second to Trevor Moore for the most underachieving player so far this year. He's taken a step back for me this season, and I thought he would be better than he was a year ago, his first season in the NHL. But at times, he's been a liability defensively. He has not taken that at least half step forward that I thought he would offensively when he had 2 goals and 24 points last year. He is getting power play time, but he looks more like a rookie this year than he did last year in his rookie season. So I've been pretty disappointed with Jordan Spence. Again, my expectations of him were high. I really thought he'd take another step forward, but he really hasn't so far. So I got to put Jordan Spence in the not meeting expectations category so far this season for me. I do want to mention Drew Doughty and Arthur Kaliev. Obviously, I'm not mentioning them because they haven't played this season, so I guess you would give them an incomplete grade at this point. And I would say the Kings overall as a team are meeting expectations for me, maybe slightly exceeding them a little bit. But one key area I think the Kings certainly aren't meeting expectations is the power play. But for the most part, other than that, meeting expectations, I think individually a lot more players are meeting or exceeding expectations than not, which obviously is a very good thing. And that equates to, I think, the Kings having a solid season so far. All right, real quick, we do have some Kings-related news to pass along. Former Kings head coach Todd McClellan hired today as the new head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, takes over for the fired Derek Lalonde. This will be T-Mac's 4th NHL head coaching job. He's finally out of the Pacific Division after stints in San Jose, Edmonton, and LA. Todd McClellan, now the new head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, where he was an assistant under Mike Babcock and won a Stanley Cup with them. So he goes back home in a sense. But I always liked Todd McClellan as a person. He was great to deal with, straight shooter, and wish him all the best of luck in Detroit. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Friday, of course, it is our weekly fan feedback show. What do you think about this list? Is there anyone on here that you think was unfairly put in their category? It's your chance to comment on it or anything else going on with the LA Kings as well as we get ready to see the Kings take on the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday. Excited about that after this Christmas break. Anything on your mind, question, comments, concerns, send an email to lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE, and you can always leave your comments on YouTube if you're watching in the comments section, and stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you on Friday, and as always, go Kings go.